Video, we're going to continue the Guess My Number game, and this is going to be part 2 where we start beginning the game loop. So, a couple things. I currently have my terminal in my current folder of files right here. And another thing is that if you guys remember in the last video, when we start our game up, we have this like input that says what is your username, and let me just delete this change. I made this like quick second change here. So let's see here. If we run this, we have this prompt right here, and it's right next to the username, so we kind of want to like separate that out. So what we can do is we can just add some spaces at the end. So when we ask for a prompt, instead of saying what is your username, it'll like have some spaces, so we have like clear differentiation of what's our username and is that part of the actual question. The user can see it a little better. So in this video, what we're going to do is we are going to start the game loop. And what I mean by that is we're going to have this series of questions where we say, guess a number, is it higher or lower? So the first thing we need to do, well, is that we need to have our number, our random number. So, we'll make a section here like called game variables, and like maybe like game startup here, just to like label our code a little better. And so we kind of discussed in the last video regarding our difficulty. If we want our difficulty to be hard, then we'll have a random number going from 1 to 10,000. And if we had medium, it would be 1 to 1,000, and easy would be 1 to 100. So when generating a random number like 1 to whatever, we need to know what that whatever is. So we'll have a variable called upper limit, which will represent like the maximum possible value of what our value, it'll represent the maximum possible value of a range, if you will, of random numbers. So right now we'll set upper limit to 100 because by default difficulty is easy, and we'll case on the difficulty, right? So we'll say if difficulty is equal to easy, that's already taken care of, so we don't need that. So how about if difficulty is equal to medium? Well, if it's equal to medium, then I want upper limit. Let me just make sure my indentation's right. Upper limit being equal to 1,000, right? So, and then else if difficulty is equal to hard, then I want the upper limit being equal to 10,000. So at this point, we kind of have our upper limit. We know what we're going to do. It's going to be 1 to whatever, 1 to n. So now what we want to do is we want to play around and try to figure out how to get a random number from 1 to n. Now to do this, this is a great point to discuss the differentiation between like a file development and using IDLE. In IDLE, we want to test out a couple lines of code in order to make sure it works and then put it in the file. So let's do exactly that. So let's start off idle or IDLE. And what we're going to do is let's first make sure like we're getting our difficulty right. So like we'll call like D for difficulty. Make sure we're getting that correctly. So difficulty question mark. Just make sure here. So let's say easy. Okay, well we kind of had two e's there, but all right. So we know that we're getting our difficulty in right. Now to generate a random number from 1 to n, we're going to need something called a library. Now a library in Python is just a collection of code and functions that are given to us. The creators of Python were very generous, and they gave us a lot of random a lot of libraries, and one of those is the random, which gives us a lot of functions that we can use. So I'm going to cover libraries in a future video, but what I could just introduce it now. So to import, to use a library, we first need to import it. So we'll import random. That's how we first get access to a library. And then to access one of the functions in these libraries, we do random, which is the name of the library right here, dot randint. And what does randint stand for? It stands for random integer. And that's exactly what we need. We need a number 1 to 1,000. So let's look at this, right? So it takes in two arguments, two parameters, 1 and then 1,000. So this will generate a random integer from 1 to 1,000. Sounds like what we need, right? So we ran that once. Let's run it again. 391, 8878, 546. This is exactly what we need. So by playing around in idle, we know what to put in here. We know that we can replace this with our upper limit and get going. Now it's good coding style in Python to put all of our imports at the top here. So we'll do import random, and that'll be at the top. So you can import them first and then use it. It's just good style. All right, so we have our upper limit. Now let's get a random number. So our random number, well, make sure a variable has a underscore if you want to put a space in there. Our random number will be random.random of 1 to upper limit. Right, we're all good. If it's hard, it's going to be 1 to 10,000, and if it's medium, it's going to be 1 to 1,000. Easy, 1 to 100. All right, so we have that. We have set all of our game variables, and that's a great name for a variable, random. How about random number? So let's start asking the user for input. So let's have this condition, right? So when considering the structure of our code, we're going to need to be doing looping, right? We're going to need to be doing some piece of code the same area over and over and over and over again. What are we going to need to be doing over again? Guessing, like having the user enter a number and then saying if it's higher or lower. So to do that, let's make a loop. Now, what type of loop are we going to use? Are we going to use a for loop? Well, a for loop runs a definite number of times. We don't know, we can't make any estimates about whether or not the user will finish their game in a definite number of times. So what's another loop we can use? Well, we can use the while loop. And the while loop executes on a condition, right? So we can say while some condition. So why don't we say like game continue? That'll be our condition, right? So is the game continuing? And initially, let's set it equal to true, right? I mean, the user hasn't won the game by just starting it up. So we'll have this while game condition variable. And now this is where we're going to have a bunch of repeated code, right? So now we're going to ask the user for some input. We're going to get their number, and we're going to say if it's higher or lower. So let's start, right? So let's get the user's input. So we'll say user guess. And again, if we're asking for input, what are we going to use? We're going to use the input function. So user guess, input. What is your guess, right? So let's see, what is your guess? And again, we can make these variables, we can put these variables up top here. And that's even better for longer variable, not these variables, but these like messages, these strings up here. We could probably put this up here. It's kind of long and clunky, but we'll leave it in here for now. So what is your guess? All right, we have the user guess, and now once we have their guess, we can see if it was right. So if let's see if the user actually guessed it. If the user guess is equal to random number, what are we going to do? Well, they're going to be done with the game, right? So game continue is going to be false, right? Once they guess the number, we don't want to be asking them again and again what the number is. Else if the user guess, so at this point, right, if the user's done, they're done. And actually, let's congratulate them here. Let's say, hey, print, you did it. You guessed the number. Awesome. And now, let's say we have two different cases, right? The user either guesses it, they get it right, or they don't. Now, if they don't, we kind of wanted to have some hot, cold, or some indication of whether or not they were close. So I think in this case, we can do like something like, well, if the user guessed too high, they can lower their guess, and if they guess too low, they can raise their guess. So if the user guess is greater than the random number, we can say print, your guess was too high, right? Your guess was too high, and then else. So there's like three conditions here, right? You either get it, you don't get it, and it was too high, or you don't get it and it was too low, and that's covered in the else statement. Print, your guess was too low. So I know there's some other functions, other features rather, and other things we need to do, such as adding the number, like the guess itself, and keeping track of that. But at this point, right, we want to test frequently. We want to make sure everything's working. Let's test it out. So, okay, let's do this. What's my username? Mike. I'll take easy. 50. Oh wait, hold on. We got the number wrong. No. Well, we didn't get the number wrong. Rather, I mean, we probably did, but we have this error right here. So let's go through this error and see what's happening. So we're given a line number here, line 39, and we're saying that we can't compare a string and an integer. Well, that's weird. I know that from rand int we're given an integer, so that must mean that user guess is a string. Now, to convert a string to an integer, we can use the int function. So how that works is you just surround whatever you want to convert to an integer in this like int function, and that takes in like a string. Okay, so we convert that to an int, and let's try it now. Right, this is the point of testing, right? Imagine we wrote a lot of code and we didn't test it. This is important. 50. Your guess was too low. All right, 70. Your guess was too low. 80. Guess was too low. 90. Too high. 85, 84, 80, 86, 87. You guessed the number. Awesome. So listen, we went through this whole logic. Now, of course, let's make some separation here. Maybe put this like input, have a little space. So there, we test the main game loop. It worked out. And now in the next video, we'll start addressing our feature wish list and get that working. Because at its core, we have the program working. We have keep on guessing. We have some feedback mechanism. So in the next video, let's complete our wish list and implement all the features. See you guys then.